Hey Marge, it's good to have you with us. You have been in this field for a couple of decades now. Can you give us a preview of what you have seen through these years, all these years?
Thanks, Janani. Thanks for having me on. Look, believe it or not, I launched my first business back in 1995. That's like almost 40 years ago or 30 years ago. And way back then, it just seemed a little bit more simple then. You know, you just get on the phone if you wanted to go and build a database, and you would actually talk to people. It was a lot more intimate. And then, of course, we would do things like we would stuff letters from home to do the one to many, which is not much different to doing an email campaign because you still don't know if the brochure was going in the bin or the email would be deleted. And then, of course, along come the mobile phone and the internet. And what I noticed then is the thing is that it all became very self-serving, all about me. You had to be on the internet, you had to be seen, you had to be visible. And what came along next was things like you would have Tony Robbins would turn up and Gary Vee and all these people, all these coaches and consultants wanting you to buy their educational programs. And then they would have this affiliate marketing software that you have to have Kajabi or you got to have Infusionsoft or you got to have ClickFunnels. And all that software basically was you could get a cut or a commission from that.
Hmm.
And that's pretty self-serving too, isn't it? You know, they're
Hmm.
not really worried about your business, they're worried about your pocket. And then, of course, then after the affiliate marketing, then we had social influencers come along. And all these women that get paid millions of dollars, and people don't even realize they're not going to be famous all for forever. And then, of course, COVID came along, and you've got a situation now where it's now just pushed everything online. It's really just fast forwarded everything, and we're more overconnected than we've ever been before. I mean, you must agree that if it's not your phone pinging, your email inbox is full, and good luck with going on LinkedIn. And so
No, so
what's really
hard.
happened now?
Mhm.
Yeah, we've really become quite switched off. And unfortunately, you've got all these marketing gurus saying, oh, get in line, get online. Because if you get online, that's where everybody is. But then you've got to try and get heard. So it's sort of like we've come full circle now. And given the fact that we're now at home here and locked down, we've got more time to be online. And what I'm noticing, especially in like Facebook chat groups, everybody's highly sensitive. So you've got to be really, really careful about your branding because one thing wrong can just ruin your reputation forever. So that's pretty much where I think we've gone from something that was intimate and connecting to something now it's over connected.
No, true. Like they say, once it's on the internet, somebody can always find it from there. So we need to be really, really careful of what we post, not just as a business, but also as a person. Like if you're connected to a business, then you need to be careful of what you post and what you react on your personal pages too. That's something that business owners really need to take into account. And you have helped a lot of businesses launch and relaunch over this one and a half decades. So which needs more attention? Like, do we need to launch hard or do we need to relaunch, or is it both the same? What are the major differences? And you know how do we approach launching? Do you approach launching and relaunching differently?
I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, people buy from people. Like people buy from those they know, like, and trust. So therefore, you are the brand first and foremost. Before anything, before we even go to the internet and the website and the logo and the color palette and the font, we are the brand. So that's number one. Number two is that we we really do need to ensure, and there's no real major difference here with relaunches and launches. The only difference is in a relaunch, you've had a few years under your belt, you've got a reputation, you've got a database, you may have made some sales, so you're on your way. But when you're on a first launch, of course you don't have any of that. But the thing is that what our business owners don't really normally do is they don't go out and do their market research. you see. And so if you were rebranding and wanting to do a relaunch, I would be basically saying you must go to your market and find out what it is, have they been affected by COVID, how are they feeling, what's their priorities now, and actually do that market research. And it's no different for a launch. Now, people, that was the other thing that we found over the years, wasn't it? We must have an avatar. But the thing is, with an avatar, I remember my business coach saying, Margaret, you must know your avatar more than she knows herself. And I'm like, I thought I did. I had a business called Real Tradies Wives of Melbourne, was my last business. And all I did is attract tradies. I worked that one out. So it was because I thought, I made the assumption that I knew what this market was thinking and feeling. And unless you go and basically do some focus groups, is what I say, not surveys. When you get a survey, Janani, in your inbox, do you fill it in?
Depends on what it is for.
And how much attention do you give it if you're busy?
If I'm busy, I don't even look at it the second time.
That's exactly right. So people use surveys to get really important information. And let's face it, your business is a big investment. So I always say a business owner should, whether they're relaunching because of COVID-19 or whether they're deciding to launch, is that they need a focus group of a sample of no less than 30 and to do it in like a Zoom focus group. And people go, well, how do you find those people to come in your focus group? Well,
So,
then that's where you need find someone like me, because I'm well networked and I can go out and find them for you. So that's basically what I say, because when you have a think tank, then you get more information.
And that's always like, what we say, leave it to the professionals, because they know what they're doing. They have the experience. And if you have a business coach or a specialist who does this, then they're going to make it like all easy for you. Like they have done this, like you have been doing this, like the same. And if I come to you, you'll be able to give me the perfect solution. I wouldn't even know who to approach or who my target audience are to get the support group. But when I come to you and say, like, Mark, I'm gonna launch this design business, and you know who my target audience are, I don't need to research it again because you have already done that. I definitely agree with that. Yeah, that's something that I think business owners or people who are launching should spend their time and money on, so that, like, once you launch right, then it means that you've launched it perfect.
Because seriously, when you think about it, otherwise you're doing it like this,
Yeah.
right? You're putting all that money in it, and you're thinking, okay, I know what I'm doing, but you don't, and you just waste money.
No, no, definitely. Even this morning, I was wondering, should I get someone to do my marketing, or to at least guide me with my marketing? Because I design good. I have designed for other marketers, but I would not know how to present my designs. Like the identity, the brand. I can. I have designed a lot of logos, and I can design a perfect logo for you, but unless it ties with a brand, or unless the business owners knows how to use this logo, then even though it is the perfect logo, it's not going to make any sense. So that is always there. So speaking of logos, we come to identity of the business. So each and every business needs an identity to establish themselves. It may be to their competitors, to their target audience, to their existing customers. So that is what branding basically is. With your experience, uh, with with guiding businesses to launch and relaunch, what do you think of the need for identity? Can you tell us your experience with business in regards to branding?
Yeah, look, I'm going to share some slides in a moment for you, just to clarify my feeling on branding.
Mhm.
And because I'm so passionate about, you are your brand first of all. So you have to be very aware of how you're showing up. Like we said at the beginning, you should be Google proofing your reputation, because people are going to check you out. So like, for example, you would need to have an identity that people will relate to, that will connect with, especially now. So the identity and of yourself and the business is what I believe is more fused. It is almost like the law of attraction. That's the way I look at it, because branding isn't just a logo. It is more than that, and it is something that you really, really do need to go to a professional who really does understand branding, the psychology behind that, just as if you're going to do your market research. And I don't care if you're a solopreneur. I'm a solopreneur, and I still go to the professionals, because I'm not the expert. So I'm an expert in, as you can see behind me, a targeted lead generator, a connector, and a business launch specialist. But I have a team around me. And the thing is that people also need to be aware of when it comes to their identity. Do you know that people judge you by the company you keep?
Wow.
They do. So if you surround yourself in people
Mhm.
that they know may have burnt somebody,
Mhm.
they're not going to do business with you,
Yeah.
simply because who you're associated with. So the identity of the brand is, it really does come back
Mhm.
to the person as much as the business.
So that's a really good input about how we are our brand, and that like we need to be careful of not just what we associate with our brand, but what we associate with ourselves too, and who we associate with ourselves too. So to put it in a nutshell, uh, can you tell us what is branding and what, according to you, is branding?
Well, as I was saying before, how I was saying it is more like the law of attraction. It's about your relationships. It's about your personality. It's about your DNA. It is all about relationship with the market and how they perceive you. Perception is everything, and your brand must speak to the emotion and the connection of your target market. Because at the end of the day, we are human to human. We're not selling a logo. Doesn't sell to a human.
Definitely.
People buy, like, yeah, people buy businesses from each other. They invoice each other,
Mhm.
they sell to each other, they market to each other. So everything to do with branding is all about human connection and the emotion, and making sure that you are connecting in the right way. They talk about connecting to the pain point. Well, if you haven't done your market research, you're second guessing and you're making an assumption. So I'm just going to share my screen now. um, okay, so branding is not a logo, and Seth Godin is an absolute master, isn't he?
Mhm.
He says a brand is a set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that, taken together, account for consumers' decision to choose one product or service or another. So your brand is also your story, you see. Um, and basically, if you look at the three components of branding, it's all about your vision, your mission, and your values, which also comes back to your why.
Mhm.
And people aren't interested in what you do. They're not interested in how you do it.
How you do
They're
it.
interested in why you're doing it. Yeah, exactly. So if you look at the three components of branding, you've got to have a brand strategy, a brand position, and a brand identity. And we've just talked about the brand identity, where your business logo, your visuals, your messaging, your copy, everything to do about that comes together from the DNA of yourself and your personality. So the way that you speak, the tonality of the copy, the style of font, all of that comes together in brand identity. And then you've got to do your brand positioning. You have to know your point of difference. You have to know where you sit and why you're there. And then you've also got to have a brand strategy around that, which is, how are we going to roll this out? What marketing are we going to do to ensure that your brand is in front of the right target market. Then, of course, a brand can do a lot for a business, big and small. So it doesn't matter if you're a big fish, it doesn't matter if you're a small fish. You all must be thinking about brand right from the start. But I'm going to say later, you don't have to spend a lot of money in the beginning. Because you know why? If you have good branding, then you get credibility and trust. And if you look at the green fish there, that just means that you become an influencer. You don't have to go and hire an influencer, become your own. So if you have a good brand strategy, a good brand positioning, and a good brand identity, you're going to be able to start influencing people.
Definitely.
And you're going to build a reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And that all comes back to your credibility and your trust. Your identity. So this is where I'm talking about your point of difference. Don't stay, like, for example, for yourself, Janani. There is dime a dozen logo makers and graphic designers out there. And the thing is, it's with the internet, as you can see, that's what it's like. That's all the graphic designers there. So how do you stand out? And the same thing with web designers, because everybody, or a coach or a consultant, how do you stand out? And the thing is that the other thing too is that number 3, your branding is all about an asset that you can sell later on.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that is actually got dollar value. And so that is really, really important, that you, when you're thinking of branding, don't go and just to sort of like Fiverr and get some hodgepodge, graphic designer. That person who's working with you must understand your business and your essence and your DNA inside out. Otherwise, they'll get it wrong.
Yeah, no, how important is branding to a business that is relaunching? So when you launch, you already have a brand and you have, like when it's relaunching, is it the same level of importance should it be given to a brand, or do we just like, how do we approach branding while relaunching?
The best way I can explain this is through a very current example. I'm working with a retreat business, and they engaged me because they obviously were shut down and they couldn't operate because no one was going to retreats. They didn't want to go online because I figured that, you really do need the energy there to be able to have that retreat experience. So they abandoned that for a while, and then I went out and I did my market research and I found out all the information that the market was thinking and feeling. And then I came back and I basically made some recommendations, and they decided to go down this track where they would go online, but they decided to do it in a meaningful way. And so they decided they wanted to put on this big event for frontline workers in hospitals, the police, all the frontliners who really are stressed out to the max, and they're going to have this big event. And they said, can you go and get me some sponsorship for the event? And I said, I wasn't sure how I was going to break the news because she's really attached to her logo. But they were saying, could you go and get a really big business to sponsor us? And I was like, you really should have to like change your website a bit, or maybe update it a bit, because you have to look on the same level as someone who's sponsoring. And the same thing, even if you weren't going to get a sponsorship, the thing is you have to look current. You can't look tired and outdated. So I think that even though people would say, oh, but I'm 30 years in business. Of course you're 30 years in business. But the fact is that people today are very quick to make decisions, and they're always online, and there's always other choices. So you really do need to consider that when you're relaunching, as much as, as much as someone who's just launching, I'd say.
So yeah, no, I understand you. I mean, you are relaunching for a certain reason. Like, we are going through this, making updates or something. So why not update our branding with that as well, and make it relevant, make it relevant to the current scenario, make it relevant to the current era, or that. So yeah. how important is logo to a brand? I mean, I know that logo is not the only part of branding, but not of all of branding is a logo. But what is the importance of logo when it comes to branding?
It is very important. And I have to say, people like yourself understand the power of a logo and a statement that it gives. And it's basically like when I had mine done, I think I paid $750 for my logo, and that was just the Marg Lange bit. That wasn't the change agency bit with the stamp.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through, I don't know, 6 pages of questions just on my personality, just to get that fusion between what my personality is in relation to my signature. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that everyone's going to be going doing personal branding, but the fact is that I've got another example. So I had this other lady, she was going, oh, I'd like to do, I'm relaunching, I want to do this logo. And honestly, it was just all writing. And I'm like, it's too much writing. And she goes, but I like it. And I'm like, yes, but you're in the manufacturing industry and it sort of looks like a Mills and Boon book. It just looks wrong. So this is where I say it really does have to be consistent with whatever it is, the product and service or the industry you're in. Because if you're in construction, you don't want to look like fluff, let's face it. And if you're in a health and wellness industry or anything to do with psychology, you don't want to come across as too strong when it comes through more connecting. So yes, I would say logo is definitely very, very important.
Very important. So is it necessary to have a brand or a logo right away as you launch, or can it be delayed? I mean, like, can I like first play the market a little before I go ahead and invest in something like a brand or a logo? What are the advantages, and are there any disadvantages to this strategy of delaying making a brand or a logo?
Look, obviously, the obvious advantage is cost, right? Because it does cost quite a bit to actually get your branding portfolio done. Okay, so that is the first thing, is obviously the cost. And I know that I launched without a website.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically had an idea of, I mean, I was lucky because I'm an established business owner, and when I was launching my business, it was quite interesting because I already had people coming to me, and it was why I started it, because people were coming to me wanting to launch. So I really didn't have to worry about the branding and the logo at the beginning. Having said that, are you on LinkedIn, Janani?
I am.
Yeah. Now, you wouldn't LinkedIn with someone who is faceless, would you?
Definitely not. No, I,
Right. So
I get it. Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
as soon as somebody, you know, here's another one. Here's another good example. I've got another client who is looking at artificial intelligence software. And I said to him, look, I can get you some prototype testing for your software, but if I want to take you to the people that I know, you've got to have your website and you've got to have your logo done and you've got to have it all done and your video. And he goes, oh, I want the meeting. He was insistent. I want the meeting. And so I created the meeting. And the very first thing they said, we love the idea, but you better get your website done and you better get your logo done, because we can't go to our big clients and get you to the next space of where you want to go if you don't have it done. So yes, some people go, I like, many tradies. You think about, I don't know if you call them tradies over there, but tradies, like construction workers. Yeah, I don't need a website, mate. You just need a good ute, some tools, and word of mouth. But they always still have a logo on their ute, they have it on their van. They still have it. So for me, yes, you could delay it, but my point being here is, don't go and spend $17,000 on branding at the beginning, because you're not that big. Just do what the small amount you'd have, like, that is going to get you started, that makes you look good, it makes you look consistent and relevant,
Mm-hmm.
and meaningful and all those 5 things I
Mm-hmm.
said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then start from there.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the only, it's good to delay because you don't, it's technically you can do it,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't advise it.
Shouldn't advise it. So it's
Mhm.
like you can do it, but there are like more disadvantages than advantages of going in without a branding. I mean, I can like I'm not an like I can relate to this. Like, you have to name your baby. You can't forever call them baby, and it's always good to name them early. Yeah. So Marge, we are in uncharted territories right now, and most of us haven't like hadn't like even heard of a pandemic or a situation like these before COVID came along. So how should we approach branding when the scenarios around us are not regular, like
Mm.
during a pandemic or a recession or some movement is going on, or so? How do we approach branding in uncharted territories?
Well, in terms of whether it is a pandemic, whether it's a great, global financial crisis, humans are humans. That's all you've got to remember. People, and if you can do some research on how people are, and that's why the research is so important, because people are, you might make an assumption. Like I've got plenty of examples here. There was one, it was a retreat business, and the retreat owner was going to have a day event. And I said to her, well, why don't you approach this person and sell the package to her? And she goes, oh, she hasn't got money. And I went, I actually took this lady, I had a conversation with her. I talked to her offline, and she goes, oh, I've got the money. It's not a priority. And so the business owner had made a wrong assumption. Not everybody's hurting. Some are actually flourishing, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'd like to just share my screen now,
Mm-hmm.
just in terms of, again, some slides just to go through this pandemic about the really importance of being very, very careful of how you show up in your branding. Even before this pandemic started, the PwC research is the PricewaterhouseCoopers. They're a big global business, and they do quite a bit of research. And they found that 59% of global consumers and businesses, they felt they'd lost touch with the human element in terms of customer experience. And customer experience is all part of branding. Um, and that 75% of the customers surveyed preferred to interact with a human versus an automated machine.
Mm-hmm.
And that a lot of us now, where we go and we get so frustrated if we talk to a chatbot and it's not understanding what we really want it to understand the problem that we're trying to solve. So that was the very first thing that I thought was really fascinating, that even before this happened, we were in an overconnected, disconnected world, and people were really yearning for human connection. And I go back to this slide again, this slide where, how do you know how this crowd is feeling unless you go and do your research? And then let's look at the pandemic. When it happened, everybody went into a state of disbelief. Then in stage 2, they went into anger. In stage 3, they went into sadness. Stage 4, they went into acceptance, but that acceptance had a little bit of uncertainty around it, but at least they were accepting it. Now, if for us in Melbourne, we went through lockdown 2.0, we're back to disbelief. And so the market here in Melbourne is back in stage 1 and 2
So
and
it's a
3
cycle.
again. So about a few months ago, we were stage 4. So if you were wanting to go and market your product or service, you better understand that people aren't all happy, and you've got to understand which part of the grieving cycle they're in until they actually become optimistic. And unfortunately, with the pandemic, as we are seeing around the world, what's happening is in Britain and other European, they're actually countries are now seeing the second wave. So anyone watching today, and even in America, anyone watching today has to be aware that depending on what is going on in your country, you have to be aware that there is going to be like an up and down roller coaster, as you can see on this slide. So, for example, if you're looking at the human grief cycle here, it dips and it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. So your marketing and your branding and your presence, as we we're saying, needs to be in line with what's happening in the market. So that is like when you said to me, like, I don't know how you found me, Janani. You just said, "Oh, I really enjoyed your series." I didn't throw any money at that Crush September series, and in fact, I had to change it from Black September to Crush September because I got completely canned. I was getting messages in Messenger saying, "How could you cash in on Black Lives Matter?" And I'm like, "What?
That is
I'm not
not
talking about
good.
Black Lives." But it just goes to show you how sensitive people are. And people are on Facebook, they're so opinionated and they're absorbing all this stuff. They're full of uncertainty and fear. They don't know who to trust. And we know that a brand has to be trustworthy. So it's very important that if you look at your branding, if you look on here on the left-hand side of the screen, so if your market is feeling insecure and it's not really engaged, then you need to deliver messages and show up in a way that you reassure and create information and communication from your brand in a reassuring manner. And that means the type of words you choose. It means the way you deliver it has to be thought out. And then if you're looking at the engagement and the belonging part, where when we're in depression, we really want to, like, we're in isolation here. So people really want to feel that they're emotionally supported. And those brands who have been, over here in Australia, we've got a supermarket called Woolworths. They were very, very good in that. The first thing they did was they opened up special hours for seniors. It was seen as a caring gesture. And so they really, really took the lead because they were seen to be caring as a brand. And then if you're on the right-hand side, as you're coming out of this cycle, people want to feel empowered. They want to feel, it doesn't matter what you're selling, whether it's a product or service, you need empowering imagery, empowering copy, empowering delivery, and everything about you should be showing up in that way. In fact, I said to this coach, I'm coaching a client who is a career coach for bullying. I said, I don't want you to turn up as the victim. Look, sure, be vulnerable because people like authenticity, but they don't want to feel that they've got someone who's a victim trying to help them. They want someone who's empowered to do that. And finally, if you need to do, and this is where the research comes in. So here we are in Australia, and it looks like, as you can see on this graph, there are different types of households that are impacted differently according to with their marital status or their socioeconomic status, or where they're working, or where they're old, wherever they are at. So once you know all of that detail, then you can start using that to go, right, how am I going to brand myself because you're going to pick which one. Is it, are you targeting couples with children and what's income, or are you targeting elderly? Depends on what it is.
Identifying the
That's right.
target audience.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you need to go and find out that information. And then again, when you're looking at this one here, your brand values, the brand values should be around security, empowerment, and nurturance, especially in terms of times like we are now. So if you're thinking about providing practical solutions to help, being community minded, that sort of thing is very, very important. You've got to be in tune in a pandemic. And just remember, number one thing to remember, people just want to be understood and for you to understand. And once you get that, then it's a matter of taking interest in them and giving to them what they want or need, or what their priority is. So once you've found out all the information, you're set. Because then you're showing up in a way that you should be showing up, in the way they want you to show up.
Definitely. And it is times like these that networking and making connections become essential. And more than the other times. I mean, connecting and networking are really essential for the health of
Yeah,
any business. It can be business collaborations, or you may be
yeah.
outsourcing part of your work, or it may be for marketing or research purposes. But man is not an island, and the business is definitely not an island. So, how was
Exactly.
networking and branding connected?
Well, because when you're networking, you're obviously in a room or on Zoom. So how you show up, again, is like I have a course on this. I basically say old style networking has to go. Old style networking is very transactional. It's all about me. It's all about the pitch. I say no pitch because pitching is all about selling and pitching is all about me.
Mm-hmm.
So what we really should be doing is connecting. So if I'm wanting to be authentic and I want to be a genuine brand and I want to show that I have interest in you and I care about what you're going through, then I will connect. But I won't network in a way that I pitched to you with some self-serving guess about what I can do for you. Because if you say to somebody, "Oh, what do you do?" Well, then they're just going to say they're going to do the what and the how. They may not say why, and
Mm-hmm.
then their whole conversation comes to a complete halt. So Dale Carnegie in 1936, who's the author of How to Win Friends and Influence People, said basically you need to arouse a want in people and then package it up and give it to them. So how can you arouse a want whilst you're networking? And the best way to do that is to show up as the brand who is definitely listening to the conversation in context and connecting to the pain point, trying to understand and trying to solve the problem. So this is where I believe that the branding, like when we start networking after we come out of lockdown,
Mm-hmm.
people are going to be, I mean, seriously, do you like being sold to do you like going onto the internet and then there's an ad, 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 and it comes in your messenger and then you're just like, go away.
No. Yeah.
And no, right. And that's the thing, and it's the same with networking, because there's the worst thing is that you get stuck with somebody who's trying to convince you to buy something you don't need.
Yeah. No, no, no. That's totally true. I mean, like, marketing is the art of making somebody want something that they don't want, and networking is finding the balance between making your brand popular and not being pain. So when we
Correct.
find that balance, that's when you become effective in networking. Instead of like pushing yourself onto them, you kind of need to uh, you know be there, be in their sight, but still not like push them so that they start to hate you. uh,
Yeah.
Totally unrelated to what we have been talking so far, and this one is like more specific on your logo, and but it does relate to businesses. So there are some businesses, especially single proprietor businesses, and when they come to me for their logo, they're like, I really like roses, can we have a rose on our logo? But the business is actually nowhere related to rose, or it doesn't have anything to do with what do you think about this? Is it industry appropriate, or how do we do that? Like,
Industry, I would say the industry appropriate. I'd say listen to you. I would be listening to you. You know your stuff. You know your logo. And you know what? You've got to get over yourself a bit. I know you get attached and I know it's your baby. Okay, I get that. It's a bit like the lady that was in the treat business and she didn't want to let it go. She got too attached. But at the end of the day, do you want to have money in the bank and have a great business? Or do you want to get attached to a logo and a color that you like? I mean, you know, when I look at it in terms of, yes, sometimes people will go in and they'll have this vision. Now, if the graphic designer can understand the vision,
mm-hmm,
it's all good. Yeah, because I think it should be a combination of your personality
mm-hmm,
and what you like, but for heaven's sake, you can't have, as you said,
mm-hmm,
a symbolic logo that has no representation to the industry. It's like that lady who had she was in the manufacturing industry and it just looked like a Mills and Boon book thing. And I'm like, I don't get it. And if I don't get it and I'm the consumer,
mm-hmm.
well, we might as well just close up shop, because if I don't get it, then nobody gets it. Because I try to, when I talk to people, I try to come from the customer's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was working with anyone relaunching, or if I looked at their website, I go, I don't get what you're doing.
True.
That's a sign
Mm-hmm.
you need a rebrand.
True, true, true. So you have been here for 15 years. You are a specialist in launching businesses, and you help small and large businesses to launch and relaunch. And you focus
Yeah,
on generating leads when it comes to marketing. So
yeah.
what, according to you, is one thing or the main thing, what not to do when it comes to branding? Like, what is a big no-no when it comes to branding?
Yeah. Anything that would make you irrelevant,
Okay.
anything that would make you unhuman, not
Mhm.
human. Is unhuman a name? Is that a word?
I think in.
anything that anything anything that is not is quintessentially connecting. Yeah, the branding in Nodo, it's all about also about psychology, because I know you might like yellow or you might like purple, but the fact is that the perception, brand is all about perception of your business, of your product, of your service. So you're just going to have to listen to the experts, work with them, and come together with something that is actually going to speak to the market. As I said, like the law of attraction, having that energy, that connection, that relationship, so that you can build that trust, as I was talking about, the credibility, something that is going to be lasting, not just something that's, short term.
Mhm.
I mean, I hate to think that people will then go, oh, yes, but I like my logo and it's been doing well. Yes, that's true, but it could be doing a lot better too.
So
So,
relevance, keeping it relevant to the brand and keeping it relevant to what you do is very essential. Thank you for that.
correct.
This has been really insightful, and I should thank you from the bottom of my heart. You took your time out and came out to do this, and especially at this time, I think that this is going to help a lot of small businesses in how they approach branding and how they are going to market themselves.